Or Proximo,
Proximo, okay, okay.
stuff we get.
Good morning, everyone. I'm calling the meeting to order at 9:02 a.m. And we will start with the invocation by Deputy Fire Chief Eric Crespin. Mr. Crespin, good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Let us pray. Heavenly Creator of life, nature, and this miraculous universe, you are known by many names, and true to be above all names, we consider that you to be. We respectfully come before you as a unified body that proudly call this beautiful county our home. We seek your sanctification over the individuals who have been called to lead this great community in which we live, interact, and work for the advancement of all. Help this group who make up this body of governance to realize that they must primarily seek and understand what is necessary throughout our wonderful county, rather than convince themselves that they truly understand the needs of those people who have been placed before them in these positions of leadership. Naturally, we all occasionally overlook during moments of rapid growth and progress what really passes for political debate today. Remind us all that we are primarily servants before leaders of your example, and that it is our duty to serve others with humility and respect. Provide to all that humbly seek your wisdom and courage to know what to do is right and just. May we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of fairness, by the spirit of truthfulness, kindness, and compassion. This we pray in the name that we hold near to our hearts, in the name above all others. Amen.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. We will now move forward to the Pledge of Allegiance. And Ms. Zamora, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, Ms. Zamora. We will now move on to roll call of commission members present and the determination of a quorum. Amanda?
Commissioner Murillo,
Present.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Here.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Present.
Vice Chair Shaljo Hernandez,
Here.
and Chair Chaparro.
Present. We do have a quorum. All 5 commissioners are present. The County Commission convenes as the Board of County Commissioners and the County Board of Finance in open session. Mr. Macias, are there any changes to the agenda?
Good morning. There are no changes to the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Macias. We will now move on to Pet Showcase. Mr. Macias?
Madam Chair, can we pass, okay, well, I'll just read it from here. Again, for those individuals in the audience and those that may be watching, the County Commission takes advantage of every meeting to advocate for the adoption of animals from the Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley. The cat of the week is Bert, who's 2 years old and a domestic short hair. I'm a bit quiet and reserved, but after a few minutes of interaction, I'm purring and giving you headbutts and cheek rubs. I love pets even if I appear a little bit shy, and I don't have a mean bone in my body. I just need my family to let me adjust to a new home environment, and then I'll be a great low-key companion. And our dog of the week is Rachel. I'm reserved and a little skittish, but you'll see that I'm truly a very sweet girl. I get a little anxious during new experiences or in new environments, but I will eventually, that's a little bit off, but will eventually settle in and maybe I'll enjoy some playtime. I think if my future family helped me feel safe and let me get comfortable on my own time, I'd be the most loyal, furry family member. And again, there's some opportunities to adopt either Bert, Rachel, or some other animal that will appeal to your heart. And that opportunity is this Saturday from 12 to 3 o'clock at what is a benefit concert and icebox at the Icebox Brewery on Picacho Street. Again, on behalf of the County Commission, we encourage everyone to consider adopting an animal from the Animal Services Center. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Macias. Ladies and gentlemen, the time now comes for public input. If there is any person that would like to approach the podium and make comments to the commission, please step forward and don't forget to sign the book to your left. Please.
Afterwards.
Good morning. And if you'd state your name, please.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Macias, County Commissioners. My name is Michael Potts, and I'm a member of the Doñana County Board of Voter Registration. In the last couple of weeks, I've sent each of you each email asking you to take your take of what you expect of the Board of Voter Registration. As it currently stands, this board, in fact, every county voter registration board across the state of New Mexico, is never called to order except once every other year to clear the rolls 4 months after a general election. This seems to me to be backward. Voter rolls should be clean and clear before the general election to preclude any attempted fraud or falsified voter ballots being counted. The meeting time of this board has been discussed and talked about at the meetings of the county clerks that they have, I guess, about once a year. The county clerks, in my opinion, have colluded together and agreed amongst themselves that this is when they want the board to meet. If that's the instruction that's passed down to them by the Secretary of State, I don't know. I do know that the voter rolls were worked on and believe close to 6,000 something voters were cleared off the rolls this last March. The rest of the board members who I've contacted seem to think that this board is only to meet every 2 years. It's been told to them by the county clerk. Now, I harbor nothing but good feelings toward our county clerk and found her to be a very professional, educated, knowledgeable person, but I think she's got it wrong, as do the rest of the county clerks across the state of New Mexico. The election handbook of the state of New Mexico states in section 1438, Board of Registration Meetings, paragraph A, all meetings of the Board of Registration, not just one, but all meetings, which I take to mean more than one, shall be open meetings held in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, Chapter 10, Article 15, and MSA 1978. In paragraph B, all reports and other records of the Board of Registration shall be open to public inspection pursuant to the Inspection of Public Records Act, Chapter 14, Article 2, and MSA 1978. There isn't any section in the election handbook that I've been able to find that gives authority over the Board of voter registration to the county clerk. And I find no indication that the Secretary of State has authority over the board you have created either. I could be wrong, though. And I have a slew of obituaries down there, and we don't know if those people have been taken off the rolls or not. Who's to check? Who knows? So my question to you, county commissioners, is what do you want this board to accomplish for the county of Doñana? Are we to be an independent board, or do you want us to be at the beck and call of the county clerk and Secretary of State? At this moment, the board has not gotten together to elect a chairman or a vice chairman, and it's coming close to the time that you're to select a new board. So what are your expectations for the Board of Voter Registration, and how do you want this board to function? Now, I don't expect answers today, but it's something you can take back into your workshops and contemplate and see what you want to do as far as the board that you created. And I appreciate your time, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Paz. Is there any other member of the public that would like to approach the podium? Good morning. Good morning.
Mark Veith, District 1, Truth and Lies. Today we're going to talk about truth. Founding fathers, why they believed in the Bible, and why the Bible is believable. So the Bible is unique among all religious writing of ancient world in the following ways. It is the only book that gives an account of creation and all things from nothing. It is the only book of ancient history that reveals meaning and purpose behind events in past. It is the only book that gives a continuous historical record from first man to present era. It is the only religious book that sets moral standards required by man and at an impossible level. It is the only book containing detailed prophecies of future events that have come true with 100% accuracy. There's a book called The Closer Look at the Evidence, is where I got that from. And then there's another book, Etched in Stone, that are listed that I gave you. There's been 500 prophecies on Jesus. 300 of those were fulfilled in his first coming. There's still 200 prophecies left to be fulfilled. My father was a history teacher, and he majored in U.S. history, although by the time he got to U.S. history, it had already been altered. Woodrow Wilson, who was a member of the KKK, brutalized our history past because he took out all of our black champions in history. He removed them from the rolls. So the history that my father saw had all that excluded. Jesus is believable because our calendar is a BC AD calendar, and obviously there was enough that went on back then that they decided to make the calendar off of his. You can say, well, Mark, they were kind of like weak-minded like you because you believe that stuff, but that was the Romans. I don't think anybody can really say that the Romans were weak-minded. Encyclopedia Britannica has 16 pages on Jesus. There's 7 writers on Jesus. That's more than anybody else in history. Alexander the Great, there was 2 writers on him. One was like 200 years after, the other was 300 years after. Jesus was being written about 40 years after, and all of us, I think, can remember back 40 years pretty easily. The 22nd Psalm I gave you, odds of that happening to one person, that's 1,000 years before Jesus. Odds of that happening is 10 to the 17th. That's 100 quadrillion. A trillion in seconds is 31,688 years. So 100 quadrillion is pretty astronomically impossible. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public that would like to approach the podium and speak to the commission? Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sorry, still got the frog in my throat from this morning. So let me actually tie into a couple things, Mr. Potts, and I think so I guess I should state my name, Michael Simmons, District 1 as well. Been politically active for probably about 4 years now. And what I've seen, like Mr. Potts was saying, issues with voter rolls, did door knocking for the Trump and the Yvette Herrell campaigns. It is not uncommon to walk up to a door, knock on it, and ask for a name. And they say that person has been dead for years, 7 years, 5 years, whatever. And then we have approached the county clerk, however, and asked for their name to be removed, and they have not. And you come back the next cycle, and it happens again. So, yeah, there are issues with the voter rolls, and you can see reports that I think have been about Eric, where names are added to the voter rolls even during the closed times. So this is definitely troubling, and I have little confidence in there. To wrap up maybe a little bit on what Mark Veith was saying is that, yes, Jesus Christ is historical. Yes, Jesus Christ is faith. Prophecies abound. But even in our own national history, we come into like the state of New Mexico's preamble, and you come out to, we, the people of New Mexico, grateful to Almighty God for the blessings of liberty in order to secure the advantages of a state government, do ordain and establish this Constitution. So upon a higher law, we then establish our governments, because we've seen that man's fickle, he changes, he does all these things of evil. So we must establish our laws upon something higher. We can then go through all the original 13 colonies, and the majority of them will invoke God. We, the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, grateful to Almighty God for the blessings of civil and religious liberty, and humbly invoking his guidance to ordain and establish this Constitution. We end up with Massachusetts, which actually, if you read it, actually ends up, I believe it was a forebear to the U.S. Constitution. Let's see, third paragraph. We, therefore, the people of Massachusetts, acknowledge with grateful hearts the goodness of the great legislator of the universe in affording us, in the course of his providence, an opportunity, deliberately and peaceably, without fraud, violence, or surprise, of entering into an original, explicit, and solemn compact with each other, and of forming a new constitution of civil government for ourselves and posterity. And devoutly imploring his direction in so interesting a design, to agree upon and ordain and establish the following Declaration of Rights and frame of government as the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The majority of the original 13 colonies say very similar things, and not accidentally. And with that, thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Is there any other public comments? Thank you. Hearing none, we will move on to staff input. Mr. Macias?
We have no input. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Macias. Then we'll move forward to county elected officials' input. Good morning, Sheriff. How are you?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I come before you today to remind you, 2 weeks ago, I came before you as you were so gracious to permit me to bring problems to you. That was over sex registrant coordinator position. I was endeavoring to get them to get HR to agree to about a $2 an hour raise or a higher level of pay for that position, given its importance, given our statutory obligations. I've heard nothing. I'm merely reporting to you today that there has been no movement. I have been sent the same job description with the same previous rate of pay about 10 times. For the record, I have not signed them pointing out to HR that the matter has gone to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning, Ms. Ortega. How are you? Good morning, Mr. Reyes.
Good morning, Madam Chair Chaparro, Commissioners. Gina Montoya Ortega, newly elected assessor, along with my Chief Deputy, Mr. Ruben Reyes. I just wanted to give a little update. We're technically in our rendition period until May the 1st. This would be a time for property owners to report any changes to their property, protest values, or any discrepancies. Apply for any exemptions such as head of household or veterans. Apply for any valuation freeze. You must qualify, so please contact our office. This is a time to ask questions you may have so that we may be able to address it or protest it. Again, the last day of the rendition period is May the 1st. So just wanted to make the taxpayers of Doña Ana County aware of the assessor's office is here. We are here to help in the best way that we can and do the best that we can for all the taxpayers of Doña Ana County. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure, so.
No, just make sure that rendition, we have a lot of exemptions. This is the time to report any discrepancies, such as if you have a house that had any changes to it, whether it's additions, deletions, or you tore it down. This is the time to address it so we can take care of it. With any further ado, you can protest it at this time without having to file any other paperwork. Again, the last day of rendition is May 1st. Thank you.
And May 1st, you said?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other, I don't see any other elected officials present. Then we'll move forward to commission input. Commissioners, does anyone have any announcements? Commissioner Reynolds?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had the pleasure and opportunity to attend the ribbon cutting over in Otero County of the largest solar array in the state of New Mexico last week. And there were actually over 150 people there. And it was a large event because it actually wasn't the community solar resolution or state statute that the state passed that had made this happen. El Paso Electric actually did this along with Next Era Energy, I believe it was. And they started back in 2017 with this project, designing it, implementing it, and they just finished it and turned on the power, like I said, last week. So we now have the largest solar array in the Chaparral area, which is in my district, just across the border in Otero County, kicked off last week. It was a great event. We're looking forward, and they're looking forward to additional solar arrays here. So you can watch the space, and you'll see more of that happening around this area very soon. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. Commissioner Sanchez? Nothing. Commissioner Shaljo Hernandez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to take this moment to just voice an appreciation. I've been getting a lot of emails, phone calls, people reaching out from my district, and I really do appreciate it because it's really hard to understand what exactly is going on in the community. So I really appreciate those emails and phone calls. So I wanted to point that out. I also wanted to point out, I got my letter from the assessor's office. So thank you for that. May 1st, I will definitely do that for my home. I think that's really important. And like you said, filing for that head of household, making sure that's updated, it can only help you in the end. I think that's really important to point out. And I just want to say that I am grateful for public comment. I think it's very important to the work that we do here. And I wish that we had more individuals coming to the commission meetings to voice comments, concerns, gratitude when things go right, when things go wrong. I think it's really important to do. And I hope that we see more people coming to our meetings to voice those concerns and to have their voices heard. But that's all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Murillo?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Reynolds?
Commissioner Saljo Hernandez reminded me of something. Something that most people probably don't know are that the veterans discount can actually apply for in addition to the head of household for your property. So if you are the head of household and you're also a veteran, then you get an additional $4,000 unless the was changed this year for the veterans discount. If there are two veterans that own the property, you get 2 discounts. So like myself and my wife are both veterans. So we not only get the head of household, we also get the $4,000 for each of us as being veterans as well. So in case you didn't know that. In addition, something else to realize, I believe we just passed, and I think it got signed by the governor, that if you're a disabled veteran and your benefits used to be at 100%, you get 100% of your taxes are written off. However, the people that were 80%, 50%, 20%, they had no deduction. And I believe that we got that passed, this legislation, and the governor signed it. so that if you're a veteran and you're only partially disabled, you can still get a discount on your property tax. I'm going to try and verify that today, but it's my understanding that also passed, plus some other stuff for veterans. So look at this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think I see Assessor Ortega shaking her or nodding her head in agreement. Is that correct? You're correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And
Any
thank you,
oth-
Madam Assessor.
Any other commission input? Then we'll move forward to the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the regular BOCC meeting minutes for March 28th, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, who
Diana.
made the motion? Thank you. The motion was made by Commissioner Murillo. There is a second by Commissioner Shaljo Hernandez. Are there any changes to the minutes for March 28th, 2023, Commissioners? Hearing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Murillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shaljo Hernandez,
Yes.
and Chair Chaparro.
Yes, the motion carries unanimously. We will now move forward to presentations and proclamations. Agenda item number 2, to proclaim the week of April 9th through 15th as National Animal Control Appreciation Week in Doña Ana County. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Murillo, a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez, second by Commissioner Sanchez. Commissioner Shaljo Hernandez.
Thank you. This is my first proclamation, so this is pretty cool, so bear with me. This proclamation is supported by the Board of County Commissioners here in Doña Ana County to support the annual effort to celebrate and promote professionalism among our animal care and control field professionals. We do have a lot of you in the audience today, so I'm going to go ahead and read off everyone's name really quick before we continue. We have Mary Lee Ward in the audience today. She oversees our animal control officers and the support staff. We have Jimmy Snow, Annette Ducia, Raymond Adams, Melissa Monahan, Jason Cantrell, Sherry Duran, Ramsey Myers, Jennifer Gore, Carlos Herrera, Terry Schrader, Brian Housley, and Yuri Rios. We'll call you up here in a minute to accept the proclamation here in a few minutes, but for 40 years, the National Animal Care and Control Association has set standards for the industry and celebrated the work of animal care and control officers throughout the nation. Doña Ana County animal control officers provide efficient and quality service to all residents in our community, and that's all the way from Hatch down to Chaparral. It's a huge job and it's a huge undertaking, and I thank every single one of you for the job that you do day in and day out, because Doña Ana County is a huge county, so I know that's a lot of work. The officers respond to calls for service which provide protection from the danger and nuisance caused by stray animals, but they also work on animal rescue from injury, disease, abuse, neglect. They provide education in their daily roles to educate our constituents about animal services, what's in our community, the available resources that we have. So they work on education and the responsibilities of pet ownership. So I thank all of you, and I hope that you all join me in congratulating our animal control staff for all the hard work they do. Mr. Macias, if you'll please read the proclamation.
Thank you. Madam Chair, with your permission. Whereas the National Animal Care and Control Association hosts and designates the second full week of April as National Animal Control Appreciation Week, and whereas federal, state, and local government officials around the nation take this opportunity to recognize, thank, and commend the work and commitment of animal control officers and animal services staff for the dedicated service they provide. And whereas animal welfare personnel aid in the prevention and control of the spread of rabies within the county, protect and rescue domestic animals and livestock while capturing stray animals that could present a potential danger to the community, and investigate reports of animal abuse and provide resources for animal sterilization. And whereas animal control officers often work in difficult and dangerous situations, including dealing with aggressive and injured animals, and face physical and emotional challenges as they carry out their duties. And whereas we recognize and commend county animal control personnel who answer calls for assistance from the northern to southern areas of the Doña Ana County and help educate residents about responsible care and pet ownership, we call upon residents to recognize the important work done by animal control staff and to express their appreciation for their dedicated service to our community. And now, therefore, the Doña Ana County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim April 9th through the 15th as National Animal Control Appreciation Week. Madam Chair, a proclamation for the consideration of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Macias. Any comments by the commission? Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to all the ACOs and everybody within the Animal Control Department, thank you so much for everything you do. I think as the Vice Chair had mentioned, I mean, this is a huge county, and it's a lot of ground to cover for the department. And so I know as commissioners, we get a lot of calls, you all get a lot of calls, and for stray animals, for animal abuse, and it's amazing the work that you all have done and the progress you all have continued to make, even in the face of seeing some, pretty horrible situations with animals and aggressive animals. I mean, just really appreciative. I think a lot of times all we get, or serving on the board of the ASCMV, we get the monthly numbers of everything that you all do, and the numbers can be astronomical sometimes. And so I appreciate all the work that you do every day for the citizens of Doña Ana County. So thank you all, and I'm excited that we get to recognize you all for this week. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Sanchez. Well,
Madam
I'd like
Chair.
to, if I may, thank you. I'd like to thank all of you, and I would like to share a story with you. I received a call from a member of the assessor's appraisal team about a year ago, and they were faced with an animal in distress. And so I don't know which officer was made contact at that time, but the officer responded within 20 minutes. And so that shows the professionalism that you show to the county and your commitments. So know that it's not unnoticed. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I have several pets that have been rescued from the animal shelter. But you're doing a great job. Thank you. Mr. Macias.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to take a moment to thank the board. The board's support for the continued enhancement of compensation for animal control officers, especially in the last round of union negotiations, really helped tremendously to fill the ranks. And as you can see by the number of officers that are here today, this is probably the strongest complement of animal control officers that the county has had in quite some time. So I think that the board needs to be recognized and appreciated for the support that it's given to certainly the animal control staff.
Thank you, Mr. Macias. May we have Ms. Ward and your officers approach the podium? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mr. Macias. I just want to thank the officers, too, for their hard work and dedication, day in and day out, all the overtime, and never saying no to me when I ask for all the overtime and on-call nights. And I will just introduce them all individually. So I'll start with our animal control caseworker, Brian Holsey, who is the one who goes out and gets the warrants for these difficult cases. Our lead animal control officer, Jimmy Snow. We'll start with Annette Dosey. She's one of our new animal control officers. Next to her is Jason Cantrell. Next to him is Ryan Ramsey Myers. And then next to him is Sherry Duran. And then Raymond Adams. And then our newest officer is Melissa Monahan. So we do have some that are not here today. Ryan Armendariz, he's out in the field. And then we have two of our contract employees that are not here as well, Jennifer Gore, Carlos Herrera, and we have our support staff, Terry Schrader, who takes care of our court hold evidence animals, and Yuri Rios, who are not here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. May we present the proclamation, please? Oh, yes, may I have a vote, a roll call vote on that?
Commissioner Murillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shaljo Hernandez,
Yes.
and Chair Chaparro.
Yes, and the motion carries unanimously. Now may we have the proclamation?
Okay, everybody smile. Keep your eyes open. Could I put your screen down just a second? All right, I think we got it.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, proclaim the week of April 9th through 15th as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week in Doña Ana County. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Reynolds, a second by Commissioner Shaljo Hernandez. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've had the honor and the pleasure to be the chair of this board for the last year and a half, and I've got to tell you, this is a real honor to be able to provide this proclamation for these workers. You know, I'm going to read this because I don't want to miss anything that's real important. We have an emergency public telecommunications, or our lifeline. That's the first ones we speak with when we dial 911 in Mesilla Valley. They ensure the safety of all involved, starting with first responders, as they collect as much pertinent information about each incident as possible, so they can relay it to the firefighters, law enforcement officers, and emergency medical personnel. In 2022, MIRVDA answered 341,716 emergency and non-emergency calls for help, and public dispatched public safety personnel to respond. Because they also ensure the safety of the people involved in or near an emergency, including victims, families, neighbors, along with first responders, we call them the first responders. Tomorrow, April the 12th, MIRVDA leadership will award the Employees of the Year recognition, Employees of the Year recognition during their regular board meeting, which is open to the public, starting at 9 o'clock tomorrow. To receive this proclamation today, we are honored to have Hugo, Executive Director Messia, Hugo Costa, and also Albert Flores, Deputy Director. Something else I'd like to say is I don't know how many of you all actually have had the reason to call 911, but the response time we hope is under 3 minutes in every case, and obviously that doesn't happen. Sometimes it's a little more complicated than that. And when these 911, when you call 911, and if you've had to hang on the line for a while to wait for fire services or police services or sheriff's department or someone to show up, that can sometimes take 20, 30 minutes. And depending on the severity of the incident, it could require multiple agencies to respond. And what the 911 operators do is they stay on the line. They don't drop the call. They don't turn away from the responsibility of making sure that someone on the other end of the line has a lifeline to hold on to until the emergency services arrive on the scene. And in many cases, because of the staffing challenges we've had during COVID and now, they work 12-hour shifts. And if you've never thought about what's required to maintain the focus and the calmness and the de-escalation and working with someone on the other end of the line who's frantic and trying to figure out what to do, I mean, this is really difficult. It's hard for them to actually get enough people, even that want to do it, to be trained to do it. In many cases, we'll have a class of 4 to 6 individuals, and we'll have one that actually makes it through training, because it's the stress involved in this is pretty difficult. So I don't know if you've even thought about what it means to be a 911 operator, like a first responder with the police. They're not in the line of fire, but I guess I tell you what, they are taking all the emotional responsibility and actions in order to make sure the person on the other line feels safe, feels secure, feels cared about, and feels like they're going to get help. So for me, this is not, it's not exactly personal, because I have called 911, but I've never had to stay on the line for half an hour waiting for service. But for a lot of people in the county, this is very personal. And the responsibility that these first responders have to make sure everyone, every organization, every unit in the county is communicated with and gets access to the help that they need when they need it as quickly as possible is a huge challenge. For that, I'm very honored to be working with this organization and being able to present this proclamation today. Thank you. Mr. Macias, would you read it, please?
Thank you, Commissioner. Madam Chair, with your permission. Whereas public safety telecommunications are the vital link between residents experiencing an emergency and a prompt and safe response by law enforcement officers, firefighters, and emergency medical personnel. And whereas Mesilla Valley Regional Dispatch Authority telecommunicators help ensure the safety of law enforcement officers, firefighters, and emergency medical personnel by gathering timely, accurate, descriptive information that is then provided to first responders throughout the Mesilla Valley. And whereas by monitoring first responders' activities via radio communications and providing them information, telecommunicators help ensure the safety of everyone involved in the emergency, including residents experiencing an emergency, their family and neighbors, first responders, and our community. And whereas their critical role in an emergency helps prevent harm and protect lives, along with preserving the property of residents and businesses alike. And whereas the public safety telecommunicators of the Mesilla Valley Regional Dispatch Authority contributed substantially throughout the past 12 months as part of the public safety team, each dispatcher exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism in the performance of their job during every shift, every day. Now, therefore, the Doña Ana County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim April 9th through the 15th as National Public Safety Communications Week. Madam Chair, a proclamation for the consideration of the Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Macias. And I'd just like to add my gratitude to those first responders. Many years ago, when I was a young magistrate judge, it was my pleasure to work with a certain dispatcher, and I remember his name, Robert Bravo. And it just so happened that I was on call 1 week out of every month for almost 8 years, and he was the dispatcher assigned for whatever reason to the week that I was on call, and he was always stable and calm. And during moments of extreme stress, not only for victims and police officers, but for this young judge, he was a calming force. So I am so grateful to all of you. Any other comments by the commissioners? Thank you. May I have a roll call vote?
Would we like to offer Hugo and Albert, do you have anything to say?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioners, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mr. Macias, thank you very much. It's an honor to get this proclamation from the Board of County Commissioners. The men and women that work to provide the public safety communications for the county are dedicated professionals, and we're proud to call them the first responders here in Doña Ana County. Unfortunately, they're all working right now, and they can't be here. And the ones that aren't working are probably getting deserved rest from the 12-hour shifts. So they sent me. So I'm here to accept this honor, and we again thank you very much.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Madam Chair, County Commission, County Manager, there's so much behind the scenes. We couldn't do it without our dispatch staff, first of all. They are the hard workers that are behind those monitors and headsets that are doing a great job day and night, 24/7 hour operation. Not working that many hours in a row, but close. But there's so much that goes, like I said, behind the scene. Our network, our radio communications, our telephony, and our mapping are a huge thing. And also the members of our board, our public safety partners, and government entities such as this that help us do our job. So really appreciate you. Thank you very much. I apologize. Albert Flood is Deputy Director, Mesilla Valley Regional Dispatch.
Thank you all.
Thank you. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Murillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shaljo Hernandez,
Yes.
and Chair Chaparro.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mr. Macias, the other Mervyn employee with us today was Corey Murphy, and she's our Quality Assurance Specialist. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to a report, the Próximo Paso Project Report by Downtown Las Cruces Partnership. Ms. Jennifer Garcia Kozlowski and Susan Cabello. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning, Madam Commissioner and Commission. My name is Jennifer Garcia Kozlowski. This is my workmate. This is Susan Cabello. I am the Executive Director for Downtown Las Cruces Partnership, and Susan is our Director of the Arts and Cultural District. We met with Mr. Macias, County Manager Macias, last year, and we had come up with a project that we called Proximo Paso. And that, for those of you that don't know, that means next steps. And it was an idea that we came up with in regards to what are the next steps for the county within economic development and what is going on the outsides and in the unincorporated area of the county. So that's a little background, and I need to figure out how to. Okay, sorry. It's been a long time since I've been up here. This page right here, and I apologize right now up front, there is our commercial. We did a television commercial, and we also did radio in English and Spanish. Everything that we did was in English and Spanish. And for some reason, when we sent the link over, it broke and it does not work. So when we get back to our office today, I will send this to all of you to your Doña Ana County addresses right away. But this gave a quick overview of what we're doing. When we developed this partnership, we conducted phone surveys and online surveys to businesses in the unincorporated areas of the county. And we did this to assess their needs for businesses, retention and their expansion options. And we would come back and recommend a program to you as a county commission and programs and system changes that would improve the environment throughout the county. When we went through this, we started thinking and going back and forth. I'm sorry. Oh. This is not going well right now, is it? All right. There we go. We provided, our methodology was DAC provided us with a list of licensed businesses in the unincorporated parts of the county. We then went from this list, we were able to call 788 individuals. So what we did with the full list is we kind of parted down. For instance, if someone had multiple businesses and they were named, different business names, but it was one specific owner, we pulled those together and called them and talked to them about all of their businesses, as opposed to calling them 5 different times until they could not stand us. But we did that. From this list, like I say, we culled it down to 788 calls. We hired 2 bilingual employees, part-time employees, to do this process. It went over very well. People were very excited to hear from the county in response to what is going on with your business. How can the county help? What do you see as your next steps? The survey was promoted, like I said before, was promoted through television. It was promoted through social media and radio and word of mouth. We also put ads into the paper, and we sent out, which you see, let me go back, to a postcard that we had sent out, and it had a QR code that you could go to our website and take the survey. At this point, because she is the queen of this, I'm going to introduce Susan to go through our survey results.
Sorry, I'm a little bit taller than Jennifer. I like that much. Commission, my name is Susan Cabello. I am the Director of the Arts and Cultural District for DLCP. So a few things, actually a lot of things on this slide surprised us. We had, when we put all the businesses together and we had our list, we had about 889 businesses. 223 businesses completed the survey, which we were thinking it's about 25%. We were thinking if we got 10, it would be a home run. So that response rate really surprised us in a good way. 31% of the respondents gave an address that was located outside of Las Cruces. However, the people in Las Cruces, the majority of them have Las Cruces addresses, although they are in the unincorporated areas. But they are kind of in that immediate surroundings of Las Cruces. We looked at the top businesses surveyed. A note on this, manufacturing is 18%, but that is by and large micro manufacturing. So that is not the cheese plant. That is somebody with under 10 employees that is making cheese. We actually have somebody who makes cheese for the farmers markets. It's pretty cool. And then construction and professional services. Retail, you can see, is a little bit lower. Guys, I think the biggest surprise for us was that 78% of our businesses were optimistic about the future. We as Americans have been promised a recession for the last 3 years. So the fact that 78% of people were really optimistic about the business environment surprised us again in the best possible way. And I think says a lot about our county as far as the business climate and environment. 59% of businesses said they plan to expand in the next 5 years. This could be expansion as far as hiring new employees. This could be adding a new product or service. Some of this expansion is just buying better equipment so they can make more of their product. For example, we have somebody who embroiders hats. She needs to expand, and by expanding, she needs to buy a bigger machine so she can embroider more. That maybe doesn't mean that she hires somebody else. It just means that she's able to produce more. And then the businesses surveyed had been in business for an average of 8.8 years, which it looks like from our data that most businesses that we contacted that responded really opened within the last few years, probably 2018 to present. However, there are some businesses that are generational that have been open 50, 60 years that kind of skew that number a little bit. So optimism about the future. This, I think, for us, and hopefully for you, is the most exciting part of this feedback. If you could only 18% said that they were not optimistic, 4% didn't really have an opinion, and 78% said that they were. I think this says a lot about the county, its economic climate, its resources. People feel like that this is a place that they can continue to do business and that their business can grow. So different types of businesses that responded. So these are the three construction, manufacturing, and professional service make up the top 3 optimistic business types. If you go to the next slide, retail, manufacturing is in there again because so much of it is manufacturing, and auto repair make up the 3 most unoptimistic business types. So as far as business needs, 83% said that they needed assistance and were interested with growth, and 67% wanting general business assistance. To the next one. For the businesses interested in growth, most needed funding, business promotion and support, marketing help, and help finding qualified employees. So for us, a couple things that we didn't anticipate. We had pre-coded what we thought people's needs were going to be. Advertising was not on that list, but is the thing that I think came up the most, wanting help with advertising. That's both wanting help knowing how to advertise better for themselves and wanting assistance from the county with advertising in general. And that's kind of the promotion and marketing help. Finding qualified employees, we'll talk a little bit about that later, and just support services. Some of our businesses said, we don't really know what we need, we just know that we need help. So 45% of respondents listed improved services as a major way the county can help their businesses, followed by advertising, and then crime and public safety. So a couple notes about this slide. One is that improved services can mean a wide variety of things. I think a lot of that is permitting and access to permitting. Public safety comes in because this survey was also available online. The people who responded that public safety was an issue Most of those were our downtown merchants that saw it on our website. So I think you can maybe take that out from the general unincorporated area concerns as far as being in the top 3. So, so these are some comments that we pulled from the qualitative feedback that we got. So contractors wanting more opportunities to contract locally with the county. We know that part of that is just these companies are very small. Issues of having enough insurance and the bonding, right? Getting permits faster. A lot of comments regarding permitting, how it works, the speed of it, maybe not knowing where to go, maybe being a little confused about, is this something that the county takes care of? Is this something a city takes care of? And then Legal and Business Resource Center, just needing some of those business resources that are expensive for micro businesses and small business clinics and expos. We have, especially with the manufacturing businesses, just need other forums to be able to show their produced goods. For example, maybe they don't qualify for the Las Cruces Farmers Market. But they also don't qualify for an El Paso farmers market because they live in the county, they live in New Mexico. So kind of those issues, just having different ways to be able to show and market their produced goods. So couple things, some things that we found. Some of these were assumptions that we had made that are not true. We had assumed that poverty was really the biggest barrier to business. And we found that it's really the impetus to creating a business. So a lot of these businesses are made with, it's a cleaning service. So it's just cleaning supplies. Or they have a Cricut, literally a die cutting machine that they're making bumper stickers. Or, they're embroidering. It's something that starts on a very, very small scale in their home. The barrier comes when they're growing organically. This actually starts to get momentum, but they don't have the capital to scale, right? So it's growing. It really doesn't fit in my garage anymore, but I don't have the capital to make it a bigger business. I don't have enough capital to hire somebody, something like that. Most of the businesses surveyed were micro businesses and micro manufacturing, meaning by the federal standard that they have under 10 employees. And to sustain the businesses, they need access to capital, access to workforce, access to knowledge, which is technical assistance, and I would lump in there, is kind of connected to all of them, access to technology. We made the assumption that broadband internet was going to be one of the biggest requests that people said that they need help with. Only one person cited lack of broadband internet as something that they needed. And then issues with education, mental health, substance abuse, addiction were all common themes in discussing the barrier to workforce. I'm sure you've heard those discussions before. So, our recommendations. Some kind of resource navigator within the county. We think that this could go one of two ways. One, maybe a program to strengthen web, mobile, and e-commerce education. SBDC has a really great program that could plug into this. Maybe it's really maybe it's bringing their products to a wider base via e-commerce, or maybe even making their business mobile. Maybe it's not a restaurant. Maybe you need a food truck, right? And then maybe a marketing sprint for existing businesses, and that's something that Arrowhead does particularly well. Or maybe an expansion program, since so many businesses want to expand. We have who they are. We could contact them, right? It's the kind of a pool that we know. Maybe some kind of program to help businesses that are ready for expansion. Then just a position to help with licensing and permitting, to transition more of those services online, to the consistency and format and availability of forms and county resources. We spoke with County Manager Macias. I know that they're working on this. But for example, when we first started, the form to register a business was not available in Spanish, but the form to renew your business registration was available in Spanish. So I know this is a project that they're already working on. That's why that's on there. And then some of the tabs even for the pages are not bilingual. So they're not in English and Spanish. So it's that pages on the website may be a little hard to navigate if English is not your first language. And then an updated listing of local small business contractors for county procurement. And then, like I said, expanding bilingual services.
Thank you.
Stand for questions.
Just no, commissioners, any questions? I have a comment, though, that fabulous information. Thank you. Did a good job on that. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Sanchez?
I had some, thank you, Madam Chair. I had some questions, and you go back to the survey results that showed those businesses that were not optimistic. And understanding, so when you talked about it, I think what I know we talk here, when you go into the actual sectors that you were looking at just a few slides ahead, was it, I think, past this?
I think it's too bad. It's too forward. It's going to be
Right there, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just curious because when we look at retail, manufacturing, and auto repair maintenance, those are the top three. Was there any specific reason why they were unoptimistic?
So retail, it was just they felt that they didn't have enough customer base. There just weren't enough people to sell their product to. And that's why we're recommending maybe doing some kind of e-commerce training for them. Manufacturing, we had so many manufacturing that it kind of crossed all the barriers. Again, that is just being able to get their product in front of people. And auto repair, these are mom and pop auto repair places that are having difficulty maybe with working on vehicles with the newer technology. So they maybe don't have all the certifications, or they don't have, like, I have a Volvo, for example. It is it's very difficult to find somebody who can work on it because all the systems are sealed. Right, which is really frustrating for me, but it's really frustrating for them too, because these newer cars, maybe they don't have the tools or the skills to be able to work on them.
Now, if you go back one slide to the optimistic, I thought what was interesting is manufacturing here was optimistic and you know, in the top,
right,
tied for top for the top here. But and that's what I thought was interesting is you have a mix of businesses that are optimistic versus unoptimistic, and I'm just trying to understand what the drivers were. And I appreciate I think the conclusion slide I think helps a lot, but I think there were a couple comments that I think, like I said, I just thought that was interesting with the data. I think the other thing that I'm curious about was around trying to find labor, qualified labor, and I'm wondering if they've at all been, if they've even had any type of connection at all with the state workforce development offices in the area. And the reason I ask is because I think what I've seen traditionally is that there is some, if they know to go there, but if they don't know to go there or utilize that resource, it's not utilized. And I don't know that the state exactly, the state office or state workforce development office does a really good job of saying, hey, we're here. And I know they're trying to work on that piece of it, but I'm trying to figure out how do we get them involved too, because I think in addition to the county, the state has resources that I think could really help.
Commissioner, you are correct. Sorry to put it so bluntly, but the big thing that we learned is people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And when we made these phone calls and we reached out, we even had people calling back to the office and called to the city and I believe called to the county to verify that this was a real survey. So they were even scared in that aspect. So I think it's how maybe, or with us, if we go into another phase of this and working with the county to help incorporate the state a little bit more in how they're reaching out. We did learn quickly that most people did want to speak English, so language was not the barrier completely. They were excited to speak English, but they were happy that our phone people were speaking Spanish to them and weren't speaking down to them in an aspect of, oh, well, English isn't your or isn't your first language. So I think that was a big deal for us to get such valuable feedback from the businesses in the county.
Thank you. And I think going back, if we would go back to the conclusions of the recommendation slide. Sorry about that, make it jump around a little bit. Because I think really, I like the idea of having a place or a resource that people can go to find all this information, or different resources they can go to. I think even for our community development department, one of the things that's come up in some of the various aspects, and I know we're working on it to make things easier on permitting, going to an electronic process as well. I know there's a lot of movement there and improvement there, but I think if somebody knows this are the processes that I need to follow and it educates them, it'll make it easier and educate them as well, so that they know what they need to do when they come to us. But I guess my question, and this is directed to, I guess, to the commission and to the county manager, Macias, if we wanted to really kind of encourage us as a county to focus or identify lists of local businesses and contractors that we could give priority to versus those outside of the county, outside the state, could we theoretically pass a resolution to prioritize that?
It's an area that you have to be extremely careful about in terms of trying to not discriminate, but differentiate between different employees. I think that there is a 5%, isn't there a 5% local for businesses that compete? 5% preference. I believe that there is something, but it's only up to basically a 5% difference in the competitive. The problem with most of what we're doing is that the state goes out to compete, and then we use those contracts because those are the contracts that give us the best pricing. It really just depends, but all of our dollars, the majority of our dollars are spent locally.
Well, that's utilizing CES for those contracts. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
So, but if we didn't necessarily use CES and we sourced it out ourselves to local vendors, could we not do that?
We certainly could go through the competitive process.
Okay. And I think I look at something I think like the treasurer has done with trying to utilize local services and the processes that he does. I think if we could do that county-wide for what we do across the county, I think that would be an excellent recommendation on how we can support the businesses here in Doña Ana County. And so I appreciate that recommendation.
Counselor, Commissioner, I apologize. I think one issue maybe is just RFP. That process is really daunting. We've done some RFPs, and between the two of us, it's taken quite a bit of time, and then we weren't 100% sure that we had done it correctly or that we were following the entire process. So maybe some education on RFP might help local contractors.
Awesome. Thank you for that feedback. I think it's really important that we hear that. So maybe, like I said, I'd like to explore how we can find a way that we can start. Like I said, I think when we're with the services that we provide to our constituents, maybe there's a way that we can also support our small businesses here in Doña Ana County. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I have a small business. It's not in the county, but I'm going through an RFP myself, and it's daunting. It's 27 pages long. And I just can't imagine someone that doesn't have the ability to read in their native language an RFP that's 27 pages long. Another idea perhaps is maybe speaking to Ms. Skipper and maybe promoting a business once a week from each of our districts, highlighting that business. And I don't know how we would go about it. It's probably something that's outside my expertise, but that's the first thing that came to my mind, is maybe just highlighting a business from District 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that is in the unincorporated part of Doña Ana. And I see Commissioner Sanchez smiling.
I smile because I think this would be an awesome initiative for an economic development department here in the county. So Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Shelter Hernandez.
This was exciting. Thank you for doing this today. I think this is what I've kind of been looking for, so I'm really excited that this is here in front of us. You ladies said a couple things that were really important that I just think we need to hit on again. And then I think that there needs to be a whole follow-up conversation about what this information means and what we do with it here at the county. You all said that the Small Business Development Center, huge resource. When Russell and I went out and, if you don't have capital, like you said, to start a business on your own, you need to go to the bank and get money, right? Well, when you go to the bank and you want to get a commercial loan to start up your business, they want to see your 1-year plan, your 5-year plan. They want to know what you're going to do with it. And I think that document, when we did it for our business, was probably about 50 pages. And it was huge and it was daunting and I didn't know what I was doing. But we used the Small Business Development Center at DACC and we sat down with people that knew what they were doing. Huge resource. Took it to the bank smiled, So it's things like that that I think are really important. You all touched on Arrowhead. Arrowhead has their small business incubator that they do, which is so awesome. I've sat in on those conversations. They do a lot of other things for entrepreneurship. And then I know that we were talking about, so those are 2 resources. And then we also talked about the average age of our business here is 8.8 in the unincorporated parts of the county. Yes, that's a number that is under, 10 years, but also that shows how many people are coming into our community and starting businesses, being innovative, being young entrepreneurships, making soaps down at the farmer's market, Calhoun Flowers is growing exponentially. You have all these businesses in the county that are looking at going into, La Mesa and putting in a small little coffee shop, which they've never had. And you have, all these businesses growing, and I think this is really exciting. But like Commissioner Sanchez was saying, and also Madam Chair, you were saying, we have to get that information out. And if we're not doing it because people can't go online and see it, then that's our fault. And like I said, Workforce Solutions, if you want to hire and you're going to promote into a managerial position or something like that, there's funding through Workforce Solutions to pay for several weeks of training. And that takes it out of the small business owner's pocket and they don't have to worry about it. So I think it's getting that information. So maybe doing a small business portal or something like that with Doña Ana County, if that's where they're going. And I see that on your phase 2, looking at where the website hits are and using that to our advantage. If they're not coming to the Doña Ana County website to figure this out, then we need to figure out where they're going, right? And I think that's going to be really important is understanding, are they going to the city of Las Cruces to figure out stuff in La Mesa? Are they going to Workforce Solution? Do they even know how to access that? And I think those are really important conversations that we need to look at and try to figure out how to get those resources to them because it's free money at the end of the day. It's just learning how to access that money or using the resources and getting it out there. And if it wasn't for people in the community that knew that I wanted to open up a business, we would never have known about, the Small Business Development Center or Arrowhead or anything like that if people didn't connect us. And if we don't have enough people out there in our community that are connecting people to those resources, then maybe it is the job of the county to step in and have those meetings, go out in the community and talk about that and try to find their resources and get them connected. So thank you so much for this information. I really do appreciate it. I'm a small business junkie, I guess you could say. I really care about it and I really care about doing that. So you guys are doing the work and I thank you for that. And I hope that we can step in where we need to step in and let's get it done, right? I think this is important.
Commission, Madam Chair, Commission, thank you very much. And I do want to say it was very nice working with the county manager as well as with Christine Ainsworth on everything that they did. They really supported us through the whole process. And I want to say thank you to that. I also want to say thank you to you all for the day in and day out of the work that you guys do. It doesn't go unnoticed, and I know sometimes it may feel like it does. But I want to leave you with this. I will email this to you all. I did notice when it got sent up here, some of the things were off, which is odd to me. But in that way, you can see the commercials, you can hear the commercials. The other thing that we are able to do, and it's something that we want to do in the future, is provide some heat mapping for you all, so you guys can see exactly where the issues are, or where the connects. One thing that we did think, and we're not quite sure, but possibly is why maybe some of the communities aren't growing in small businesses the way they should be, because it has more to do with access to the street structure. If they have other things, maybe there aren't buildings for them to be able to rightly go in and open a business, those types of things. And that's something we do want to concentrate a little bit on the next portion.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Commissioner Reynolds.
and thank you. By the way, thank you guys for this survey. This is fantastic. I think the way you summed it up in the few slides that you did is very, very valuable. Appreciate that as well. I also, how many, do you send it out to, what about, I think it said 500 and something businesses? How many businesses did you send it to?
Sorry.
900, we had 988 businesses altogether. I think when we kind of filtered that down, it was about in the 700s.
That's a tremendous response.
It is.
I mean, that's actually, we've talked about a level of significance. I mean, you've actually got enough responses to make this survey very significant. And do you have more detail that you could provide us as far as some of the feedback and stuff? I mean, other than the slide, I think it would be worthwhile to maybe make a copy and provide it to all the commissioners to be able to see a little bit more detail about especially some of the comments, if they're organized in a way that under categories. It'd be really great to see some of that, so we can have a better idea of other things that weren't brought up, because you're looking at like the top 5, top 7, and that's all good. I'd like to see the top 12, or 20, to see what else might point to things we're already trying to do, so it'll support what we're trying to accomplish. I also agree with Mr. Macias, and if we start trying to highlight businesses here as a county, it puts us on some shaky ground, because how do we do that without showing favoritism with this many businesses, 1,000 businesses or so out there? It's kind of difficult. But I think an organization like yours could actually do that much better than we could, and maybe ask people to register with your site and provide that link, and we could actually refer to your link, and to SBC's links and things like that, other organizations that are doing it. But for the county to show support for specific businesses tends to be something I think would put us in some, would be some concern. We have to be careful about that. Something that we can do, though, that I think this board should seriously consider, is finding out what percentage of RFPs, of purchasing agreements that we actually, or contracts that we issue, that are actually done as RFPs, as opposed to going to CES contracts or CSA contract or something like that. The reason I asked that question, and I think it's important to consider, is because I know at the last New Mexico Association of Counties event that I went to, we had all the vendors standing there, and a couple of the vendors said to me, it's easy to go out to the CES contract and approve something. He says, but if you take it out for bid, he said, I can cut my price in half just by doing an RFP. So something we should consider, and I'd like to see some data on exactly how many RFPs we actually issue throughout the year as a percentage of the amount of money that we spend and the number of contracts we do. And there was one other thing that just escaped me right now. But anyway, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all so much for bringing this to our attention and spending the time with us today. We appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. And one other thing I'd like to mention, I've been communicating with Assistant County Manager Deborah Weir, and I know that she is working on bilingual access as far as interpreters and translators, and so I know she's going to be diligent about that. Thank you, Ms. Weir.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Sanchez.
I just had a question, and I don't know, I appreciate, I think between the recommendations and a proposal here for phase 2, I'd like to see how we can develop an action plan here for follow-up. So I'd love to see how, how we can, exactly, thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. Like he just, what he just said is how we use this data, because I think I don't want this to be just a pretty presentation that you all did, because there's work behind this, there's data behind this. And so how do we make an action plan and try to see, you know, to figure out, like I said, I love some of the ideas, and I'd like to see how we can kind of parse through this and figure out how we can work here as a county on implementing these things. But I definitely think that I'd love to see, as we kind of move forward, how, well, I think two things. When we want to have a second phase of the survey, I think we're starting to see with the actions of the Fed, I'm kind of curious to see what effects that have on our local businesses. We're expecting the local economy to start to contract a little bit. And so those are things that I would love to see as we move into a phase where maybe financing isn't as easy for businesses to get. You know, could that be something that we can help with? We've seen the city of Las Cruces do something like that. Those are the things that I would like to understand. So, like I said, Madam Chair, I'd love to see if we can develop a plan, or Mr. Macias can work on trying to work on some of these recommendations and seeing how we can move forward with this, so that we can continue to kind of incubate those businesses that we have here in the county. I think we see the big splashes that we have with Burrell Aviation and all the ones that we have in Santa Teresa, and those are great. I think we also have the ability to help the small businesses as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez.
Madam Chair, and I
Commissioner Sheldo Hernandez.
just to echo on it, and I think you can get the feel that we're all pretty pro small business, pro economic growth. But just to echo, I think it's really important. We do have a lot of growth in certain regions of Doña Ana County, but the ones that you are talking about and the ones that we're looking at when you say 10 employees and under, you know, those are homegrown small businesses most of the time. Those are residents of Doña Ana County coming in, wanting to make their community where they want to stay, and they want to grow their home and their family. And I think those people are the individuals that we need to take care of first and foremost, because they're us. They're the people that we serve on a daily basis. You know, we have these conversations up here as a board about GRT going down. This is a way to get GRT up, is to give those resources to the people that need it. And then I see that you have a phase 2 proposal. You touched on a few of these things. And maybe that's a question that we should have is this a proposal of a phase 2 that is going to be happening, or is this something that the board needs to decide on what we want to do with this?
You'll have that opportunity during the course of the budget preparation. But yes, we asked for a follow-up proposal so that we could go into a second year and basically help us address some of these issues, meet with department heads related to specific recommendations, how to follow up, how to implement, how to use the information. So it isn't a standalone, it's part of the budget proposal.
And when was the survey started exactly?
It was in July. It was July through August.
Okay.
So I think you will see, when you see the comments, which we can give you, that there is some discourse that is very much part of the political election cycle.
Yes. Yes, I was going to ask that question next, actually, because I'm sure there's a whole other now new sector that has come into our realm, being micro cannabis and stuff like that, that is probably not in these numbers. So I'm sure there's other concerns that are in there as well.
Yeah, so we had some cannabis, not a lot, because as I said, it was in
July
the summer,
was-
yeah. But what will be interesting for me to see if the comments, especially about things like workforce, continue in the same narrative as they were during the election cycle, right? Like how much of that is not a real concern, but how much of that language and that narrative is part of the election narrative. And now that that cycle is over, does that narrative change?
No, I think you're right. That's perfect.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do have a question on page 26 on the professional services. Can you just elaborate a little on the professional services in the unincorporated parts of the county? Which the 3 optimistic business types, and one of them was the professional services.
So for our survey, professional services were mostly bookkeepers, and I want to say bookkeepers and attorneys were the ones that we, some other things we kind of categorize as professional services, like animal training, event management. I think actually, because it's not quite retail. And you will see when you see our data that we've had to make some things go together that maybe don't organically go together, but it is the same concept. Like professional services, party management, attorneys, bookkeepers.
When it is not
It's the same.
But it is a service provided.
Right, but they all are professional services. So kind of take with that what you will. I would say that, like I said, you're right about, feeling like the economy should be contracting. We've felt that way for years. That, that we're, the other shoe's going to drop any day as far as the economy, and there's going to be some kind of a recession. But the fact that people are so overwhelmingly optimistic, I think is, it's a testament to the business environment of the county, that people really believe that they can succeed here.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments?
I remember my
Commissioner-
question.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam
Commissioner
Chair.
Reynolds.
My question is, Mr. Macias, when we issue an RFP, do we actually have services here where someone can actually sit down with us and we can go over the line items to help them make sure they understand what the requirements of the RFP is? So let's say you sent me I sent me an RFP and I needed help with the 27 pages. Can I come in and sit down with Nelson or somebody in community services and have them help me understand exactly what you're looking for, and then maybe have a sample of what you're looking for with that?
Yes, it would be more in the purchasing department. And obviously, with certain bids that go out, there is a pre-bid conference where people that are interested in bidding can come in and basically ask questions. It really just depends on the individual service or items that we're needing.
Okay.
But yes, there is an opportunity to ask any kind of questions related to any solicitation.
Thank you. That's what I thought there was. I just wanted to confirm that, because maybe that's what we also need to get that kind of message out to everyone. Make sure that when they are confused about RFPs, there's the SBDC, and then there's our SBD, whatever, small business, the DC, I think it is. Yeah, they can help, but also we can help as well if we put out RFPs. And then the other one is with bilingual. We did pass the statute was passed to put Camino Real on the list of approved publications for Spanish, and it was signed by the governor on April the 5th. So we might also look at that as a way to publish some of our documents from the county.
And I believe the Assistant County Manager, Deborah Weir, is already working on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Any comments? Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Susan. Anything else?
Appreciate it. Do you want to tell them one thing about the maps? That we can give them? Okay,
All right,
that's all.
sorry.
Thank you
I'm like,
so
no.
much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right, we're moving on to the consent agenda, item 5 through 9. Is anything needed to be pulled by any commissioner?
Madam Chair, I had questions on agenda item number 9.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners? Any other item? All right, may I have a motion to approve on the consent agenda items 5 through 8?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Reynolds, seconded by Commissioner Sanchez. Anything else, commissioners? No. May I have a roll call vote on that, please?
Commissioner Murillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shaljo Hernandez,
Yes.
and Chair Chaparro.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. We will now move on to agenda item 9, use Omnia Partners Cooperative Purchasing Contract with Microsoft to purchase software support and updates in the amount of $379,000. And boy, you move fast, Mr. English. I was
then-
looking towards the chair and
And
you
Madam Chair,
appeared.
I'll move approval of agenda item number 9.
Second.
I have a motion to approve agenda item number 9. I have by Commissioner Sanchez. I heard a second by Commissioner Shaljo Hernandez. Any discussion?
Yes, just a quick, I just have a couple of questions on this, Mr. English, and I appreciate you coming up. I looking through the agenda or the description, I'm excited for the rollout and especially around mobile devices. My question was going to be around what's the plan for implementation rollout for the Office 365? And then I guess it would not just include the mobile devices, but all of our computing devices that we have for the county.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Sanchez. So the rollout, so the new licensing is actually going to give us more licenses so we can cover everyone with the 365. The initial rollout had been delayed from COVID. And so that kind of, the plan was as we replaced the computing hardware, we would do the upgrade at that point. But then COVID kind of set all of those plans back a bit. And so now we've started the rollout. So we will do it by department, notifying those department heads that we'll be rolling out the Office 365 to their devices and not waiting for new hardware.
And we're doing that, I guess, this calendar year is the intent, or how?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
We've already started it with a few. So we did IT, and I think we're working on legal next, and we've got the admin assistants, I believe, already upgraded. So we're kind of do it department by department.
Great. I just wanted to see, like I said, understand what that plan is. It sounds like, obviously, I appreciate you explaining that. And I just speak from my own experience because I appreciate your team helping me out. I wish I would have had Office 365 and the ability to back up into the cloud at the beginning of the year. And I know, like I said, I know it's not just making the point that, once this got wiped, it's like you lose so much. And so I'm really excited that we're moving into that suite of programs and offerings, and because I think it can offer us so much. So I just wanted to see what that timing was, and I appreciate it. So thank you, Mr. English.
Any other comments, commissioners? Questions? I have a question. I need help. I'm going to need help with the Office 365, so maybe we can sit down and just work on that, especially with the issues I've been having with my computer again.
Sure, yeah, Madam Chair, I do actually have them looking at your laptop now. They got it out of your office. But we do have a training specialist on staff now. And so when they're, as we see need, like we're starting to see with Office 365, we'll set up either some lunch and learners, some training courses that people can attend and kind of get the new features of 365. There's also a lot of apps that are available that are very helpful. And so just promoting that, and so we get the most out of our licensing.
Fabulous news for all of us, I suppose.
And absolutely, Madam Chair, I'll just add in a little plug as well. I think one of the things that's cool about the Office 365 is if I'm not in front of my computer, I can access whatever I've backed up onto the OneDrive in the cloud and share it with other people because it's available both on my phone and my laptop. So I'm excited for what we'll be able to do with this software. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. I might just hand my phone over to you as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. English. Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
May I have a vote on agenda item number 9, please?
Commissioner Murillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shaljo Hernandez,
Yes.
and Chair Chaparro.
Yes, and the motion carries unanimously. We will now move on to, thank you, resolution number.
Yes. Item number 8 has a resolution number 2023-34.
Thank you, Amanda. I always tend to get ahead of myself. We'll move on to agenda item number 10, resolution adopting revised investment policy for Doña Ana County. Good morning, Mr. Rodriguez. May I have a motion on that, please?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Shaldo Hernandez, a second by Commissioner Sanchez.
Madam Chair,
Good
members
morning.
of the board, good morning. Eric Rodriguez, Doña Ana County Treasurer. Pleasure to be with you this morning. So the resolution that is before you today is the approval of the investment and deposit policy for Doña Ana County's portfolio. In 2019, the Treasurer's affiliate pushed Senate Bill 473, which among other things added new investment vehicles for government entities or public entities to be able to invest in. But one of the things that we did include in that bill was the requirement for Class A counties to update their investment policy every 2 years, starting with odd-numbered years. The last time that we updated our investment policy for our county was in July of 2021, so I am therefore before you today to update the policy or approve the policy once again. The policy itself has not really changed. We're proud to say that we drafted a good policy that is consistent with investment policy standards across the nation, and also really complies with best practices provided by the Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA. And so because of this consistency with investment policies for government entities across the board, we feel that very comfortable with the language that's already in there. I will summarize what is in the investment policy, and then I will also go over the small changes that we did make to this one. The investment policy establishes the scope and the investment objectives. I think that's pretty straightforward, identifying what it applies to and what is our objectives, which always will continue to be the safety of the portfolio, liquidity of funds, and of course, return on investments is the last objective. The roles and responsibilities and standards of care. This identifies the roles of the persons involved in the investment program and their responsibilities. Standards of care language includes things like prudence, the prudent person rule, making sure that we're making decisions, investment decisions that are viable, investment decisions that we would make on our personal money decision-making. It also includes due diligence, ethics, conflicts of interest, delegation and authority, and finally, knowledge and qualifications. Just making sure that all the risks associated with the decision-making process are addressed. The policy also identifies what is suitable and authorized investments. The guidelines include selecting investments types, the type of quality or credit quality of the investments, and how much each investment we can invest in. It also identifies the risk profile and risk mitigation factors to ensure that we're identifying what risk the portfolio is exposed to, and how we're making sure that we're minimizing or eliminating those risks. Investment diversification. This helps us establish guidelines for ensuring that we have diversified maturities, that we have diversified investment classes, that we're not just investing in one thing and exposing ourselves to credit risk, duration risk, maturity risk, et cetera. Safekeeping, custody, and internal controls. Develop guidelines to enhance the separation of duties and reduce the risk of fraud. This also ensures that the county's money is either secured by collateral requirements or other insurances such as FDIC or NCUA. Also identifies the authorization of financial institutions, depositories, or broker-dealers. This creates the process for selecting and evaluating those financial institutions and ensuring that we have an evaluation process that we're vetting anybody that we do business with thoroughly. The risk and performance standards, this establishes one or more appropriate benchmarks against the portfolio that should be measured and compared. This kind of gauges where we're at, what's our performance, if we're below industry standards or we're actually doing better than that. Reporting and disclosure standards define the frequency of the reporting to the BOCC. That is the reports that we provide to you on a monthly basis, and also our transparency to the public. That is the reports that we provide online. And of course, we do an annual review and presentation of our investment portfolio. And finally, the policy establishes an investment advisory committee. The committee is comprised of members outside of the investment team. And the committee is made up to provide advice and recommendations for the county treasurer. It is not a committee that is designed to implement or enforce certain policies. So the major changes to the policy that we made is we removed part of the broker-dealer requirements that required audited financial statements from potential broker-dealers or financial institutions. This was really unnecessary to review the broker or brokerage firms. because we're able to do that through FINRA reports or SEC report filings, which are third-party filings, which really could provide us a clearer picture rather than the institution providing us with those audited reports. So we removed that requirement. We nevertheless vet them through the FINRA, SEC filings, and do look at to make sure that they meet the qualifications. And then finally, the last update that we did was changing the appointment of the investment committee members that are outside of the county. That includes 2 members of the banking community and 1 public member. What we did there is change it to allow the county treasurer to make the appointment, so that this would help the treasurer make the selection based on qualifications and experience. The committee is designed to provide advice and feedback, so we felt that the treasurer should be able to select his or her advisors. The commission nevertheless will approve the appointees recommendation made by the treasurer in a consent agenda vote. So you do have that ability to vote for those members. Keep in mind that one member of the commission is part of my advisory committee. We also have the county manager, the county finance director included in that committee. Other than that, the policy does not have any other changes that would impact the overall portfolio's investment strategy. And with that, Madam Chair, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Commissioners, anyone have any questions for our treasurer? No questions? Hearing none?
Easy,
All right.
easy peasy.
That was easy peasy. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Murillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sheljo Hernandez,
Yes.
and Chair Chaparro.
Yes, the motion or the resolution passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr.
Madam Chair,
Rodriguez.
thank
It's
you.
good to see you.
Chair, this item has a resolution number 2023-35.
Thank you for jumping in, Amanda. Appreciate it. We'll move on now to correspondence received by Doña Ana County.
I have none.
How about that? Commissioners, before we move on to work session budget presentations, I'd like to call for a short break, if that's all right with everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
10-minute break, please. Thank you. The time is 10:48. We'll be on a 10-minute break. Thank you.
I know. My kids are all all the places that. Whole day there. How's it going? Yeah. And then I'm like, in the mornings, the dad and girls, what are you doing today? And I'm like, I'll send you pictures. Yeah. That was so much fun. I've never had. Yeah. I'm hungry. I was just like, taking time to look at everything. I mean, everyone's totally different.
When I graduated high school, my grandparents took us.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like, you went on it, right? It's like, you expect it to be big. You know, it's not as big as you think it is.
Right.
It's like, because we did when I was like the whole first floor. And so it's, see on TV.
Yeah, it's and then I'm that's it. I mean, everyone's calling, but you know, something is so crazy.
Me
And
too.
I saw it in person and I was like,
It was probably about 30 minutes. That's funny.
Yeah, the guy wasn't here.
Oh, yeah. I know. Yeah, I want to go again. I was like, my wife.
And then we ended up.
Now, did they all close or is one still out here on Picacho?
It was like a stick. It was pouring, but it was like a light rain. So I was like, oh my god, I did my hair and I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm like, but it was too bad. And all we did was just walking in the rain and that. And then yeah. Yeah, well, it was hard to do. I was just like,
I want some of this, and
yeah, and I was like, okay, I get that, you get that,
We'll share.
and we share half and half. And then something like, I want to share this. This is so good. I'm like, oh my god. And then desserts, I was like, okay, for sure, go to the gym. Like, I'm like, oh my god. I know because I'm like, oh, that doesn't make sense. I know, that's true. But I did. I had cookies. Different drinks. They had us like, okay, let's try it. No, they didn't. I'm like, I would do it again. It would be nice though to go with somebody. Because it was nice for yourself, but at the same time. I laughed at you the other day. I was laughing when I was calendaring stuff because.
With me or after me?
No, I was laughing at you because I used to have another one and then my phone crashed. And it crashed my computer. And you know what I said? That's it. I mean, I sat there for like 6 weeks. I hit up early
Let's go. Chicken salad and Chardonnay salad. Perfect. Don't. Where do you hide the hat? Oh, yes.
Yeah, I know, really, that's always the goal. Stay awake. We're ready to roll. Yeah. You're going to make some opening? Are you going to make some opening comments? Okay.
All right, we're back in session at 10:59. Welcome back. We will now be moving forward on work session budget presentations. Agenda item number 12, the South Central Regional Transit District FY '24 funding request from the county and memorandum of understanding. Mr. Armijo, good morning. How are you? Oh, it's still morning, yes.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much. So once again, I'm David Armijo, Executive Director for the South Central Regional Transit District. I'm here, this will be my 7th presentation now. It's been 7 years, believe it or not, yeah. Since the first time we did this, so all has gone well. I have a very short presentation, but I'll certainly be happy to entertain any questions you may have. Just as an overview of what I'm going to present today in 3 parts. So the first part being our annual request has gone up a little bit, and I'll go into detail as to what that is. It's $935,000 annual funding for the via the county district memorandum agreement. Those funds go to matching other grants, and so the return on investment can be anywhere from 2 to 1, 4 to 1, and even in this particular case with the electric vehicles, 9 to 1. So that's a pretty good return on investment. So for $100,000, you get $900,000 of federal funds or $1 million. So that we'll go into more detail on that. The second item is approval of annual membership fees via member of understanding. I was asked by the staff to give them an idea of what our funds are going to be, and they've gone up a little bit over the last year with some increases that were added to that. And again, I'll go into more detail. And the last one is probably the most important and why we're here is the county partnership, which provides funding to support an increase in not just bus service, but our transition to a zero-emission battery electric bus fleet. So we're going to be ordering 10 electric buses over the next 3 years. This is a photo. I don't remember the town, but it's actually somewhere in China. It's the largest solar-based fueling station in the world. We're not going to build anything quite that big, but when we get down to my last slide, I'll show you that we do have plans for moving not just to electric buses, but also having solar-based facilities that we'll have and our ability to tap into additional energy sources. So this year's request, again, $935,000. Last year was $835,000. We're asking for an extra $100,000 that will go specifically towards our grants. We were successful in bringing in $5.5 million in federal funds from 2 separate grants. The first is $2.5 million for 3 electric buses, and the second is $3.1 million for 2 electric buses and a purchase of our Santa Teresa maintenance facility that we have right now. And actually, the purchase of that facility will save us about $30,000 a year in leasing fees. So there is some savings built into that aspect of the budget. So this, of course, these funds will support our annual operations, which provide service throughout Doña Ana County, which I was surprised people said so many wonderful things about Doña Ana County. You know, it's 3,800 square miles. LA County is 4,000 square miles. I work for LA County. So it's a major aspect that when I worked in LA County, we had 11 operating divisions spread out over that long area. Here we have 2 spread out from Anthony down to Santa Teresa, and we still have to run services. And we're going to be adding a new service finally this year to Sierra County as we get in some new buses. 4 buses just entered the state of New Mexico from Indiana earlier this week, and they should be on our property within the next couple of weeks. So we're looking forward to that. Last on the list is that we're going to be making a zero-emission bus transition beginning in 2024. When I stood here about a year ago talking about our budgets, there were some discussions both on our South Central Regional Transit Board as well as the county as to when will we be doing this. And so quite frankly, these are the funds that are coming from the Infrastructure Act. And so were it not for that, we would not have been able to qualify to submit for those grants. And so that's going to give us a lot more money. Typically, we only have about $100,000 or $200,000 a year coming from the state of New Mexico DOT. So to be able to pick up $5 million, that's a significant advancement for us. Membership fee. Ever since the county became a member back in 2006 with a handful of other municipal members, and we formed the transit agency, which really began back in 2011, and then we began bus service in 2016. So all these things kind of came together. We've had annual membership fees. Last year, we increased the membership fees by about 25%. The membership fees are based on about 50 cents per person within your jurisdiction. In addition, and that comes from the base level from the census population. So with the new census and all that, we did increase our services by about 25 cents. And that's the first increase in more than a decade. So that will help us get some fees. Also creates a stabilization of what to expect each year. And so that's good. We do that with all of our member jurisdictions as well. This bus is actually the electric bus that we're looking at getting. It came out here during the Pump Up presentation back in late of January. That was at the convention center. Those of you who might have had a chance to see it, it was out in the parking lot. I think they focused a lot on school buses, and that's good. But this is the electric bus. It's from Gillett Corporation. It was en route to North Carolina when it came out. Our bus will be painted very similar to the yellow buses we have down in the southern part of the county that are hybrid electrics. So we'll have our own local aspect to it, but it will have the logo saying battery operated and zero emission on the vehicle. And by the way, those vehicles, because of the fact that they're clean based, have much longer duration. Most buses are about 12 years. We're still estimating the early electric buses only been out for a few years, but we're thinking we're going to get somewhere between 16 and 20 years on those vehicles. So much heavier duty bus, but it also provide what we need for it. I will also say with the new 4 buses that are coming in for there are ARBOC buses and the buses that we currently have, they all have ramps on the front and back of the bus. So what that means is that you have 2 doors, you can get on and off the bus. You don't have to wait for a lift. It's a lot more accessible. to individuals. It does have a power lift, but it also works manually. So if no power, something happens to the lift, it still works. So we like that. The last slide here is the county partnership. Actually, with the property that we're looking at buying in Sunland Park, it's about 11 acres. We only use about 3 acres of that now. That's got a two garage for the buses that go in and out. But there's a large area that's undeveloped in the back. And so what we're looking at doing is perhaps doing some kind of a solar farm where we'd have enough solar to generate additional power. So we're in early stage discussions with the state of New Mexico, the El Paso Electric. That would actually generate fees and energy price for us. It would pay for the cost of maintaining the facility. We are looking at that aspect of it. I also want to mention that, as I mentioned a moment ago, our return on investment has really gone up. All these vehicles we're buying, and even the facility from these infrastructure fees of $5.5 million, all come in with 90% federal participation, 10% local match. So every dollar we put up, we get $9 back. It's a really good deal for us. And of course, I couldn't leave without saying that ridership is just doing really well. We carried 85,000 people last year. We're projecting over 100,000 this year. Our ridership has been up 6 of 7 years that we ran. Only the year 2020, with the first year of the pandemic, did our ridership drop. We've been able to maintain staffing and keep our services out there and keep adding vehicles. And so that's all worked with us. Would not have been able to do that without the county's involvement and support throughout this process. So our hope is to continue to grow. We've been running about 30%. I'm smoothing that to about 17% growth in the coming year. And we're hoping to return some of the services that we had before the pandemic. One of the services that our yellow route was doing was going into downtown, not just 6 days a week. We're normally 5 days a week, but actually 7 days a week. So we're hoping to return service 100% to pre-pandemic levels. And that's going to, of course, generate more ridership. And I should say before I finish that we did get the Agency of the Year for New Mexico. You might have seen the press release on that. So that was a very good thing for us to see after 7 years. So the state doesn't do that very often. We're the first to get it for the rural operation that we do. But, you know, that does say a lot. And I think we got that in part because in 2022, not only did our ridership go up, but when we were awarded our funding from the state, we were identified as #1 in the state for cost effectiveness. So I know when we first started, we weren't carrying as many people. We may not have been as good. And if you watch the KVIA special, we didn't look good on that particular day, presentation-wise. But, you know, we've been in a curve, and we've been moving upwards. So anyway, we appreciate the help and support you get. And if I have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain those.
Thank you, Mr. Armijo. I do have a couple of questions. So you mentioned that you had 100, I'm sorry, and I didn't write the number down, the ridership per year?
85,000 rides last year,
85,000.
and we're trending upwards, should get closer to 100,000 this year.
So the second part of that question, so the participation of the ridership, from what area of the county are you experiencing the largest growth?
Well, it is countywide, but and I'm smiling over at our Commissioner Murillo over there because she hears this from me more often than others. The strongest growth is in the southern part of the county. So that would mean Chaparral, which has really done well. Chaparral was the worst route we had. I think it's now ranked number 4 of 7. So it's continuing to grow and it's doing very well. Our purple route has done very well. That operates from Anthony to Santa Teresa and actually culminates at the City Hall in Sunland Park. But the biggest routes are the silver route and the yellow route, which operate into downtown El Paso from Sunland Park. The silver route connects 6 days a week between the West Side Transit Center on Rincon Circle to City Hall in Sunland Park, and it runs every 30 minutes. So one of the big things is when we first started 7 years ago, we only ran 3 trips a day. We were 2 to 3 hours between trips. That wasn't very much service. We're now run on the hour in most of our service, and we have service like the purple runs every 45 minutes. We have the silver every 30 minutes. And so as we're growing the service both in the service day and the length of the day, we're getting more ridership.
All right, so these buses that you'll be purchasing, how many riders do they hold?
They're 35-footers. They hold 24 passengers, and you can actually stand comfortably a dozen or more riders. So your maximum capacity is 36 people per trip.
And so what's a percentage of the ridership on average on these large buses that hold the 36 passengers?
I don't have that number. I'm not, I know the average overall is probably 5 or 6 passengers per trip, but that takes all the trips into account, including smaller trips and longer trips, especially the green route, which operates all the way from Hatch to Las Cruces.
And I was just curious in asking this question, because if the buses were smaller and we could afford smaller buses and increase the time
frequency,
between
sure.
each route, or decrease the time between each route, is that a possibility?
Well, Chair, actually, that was my plan. We had to submit a zero-emission plan in June of last year in order to qualify for the federal funds that we received in August. However, there's been problems with the mid-sized buses, they call them body-on-chassis buses, having electric power. And so the United States government had problems with that because the batteries that came in were not Buy America. And so they had to do a waiver, and that was signed off by the Department of Transportation at the end of January of this year. The problem is the manufacturers we work with typically don't want to buy battery packs that don't have what they call OEM, or original equipment manufacturer. So we've kind of shied away with that and stuck to the bigger buses in the early going. But that doesn't mean that if they're able to solve that problem, that we couldn't buy more mid-sized buses. In fact, the buses we're getting in that are in Albuquerque right now are 25 footers or smaller vehicles.
Thank you. Now, regarding the annual membership fee, I don't know what the annual membership fee is. Just, you're mentioning percentages, but what is the annual membership fee?
It's $53,000, and I think that was part of the submission packet, but that was a longer report, probably about 8 to 10 pages long, that you might have gotten in your packet from the staff.
Thank you, commissioners.
I think, let me make sure I
Commissioner
understand
Reynolds,
your
yes.
question, Madam Chair. I think her question was the fees that the communities pay in order to be a part of this. I think that's the question. Was that your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that, in order for, let's say for us to run the bus up to TRC wants to be a part of the South Central Regional Transit District, they have to pay a fee every year just to be a part of it. And then, and those fees, I think we haven't changed those fees since we started, have we?
They are based on the 50 cents per passenger, and you're correct. And so what changed was the census, the numbers that we played into it. In some cases, some went up, some went down because of the way the population grew. But because of the rate had still been the same since 2006, the decision was made that we would raise the overall fee 25%. So yes, it's now more than 50 cents. Per.
See, and some of the challenges that I see, and because of the conversations we had, I believe I see anyway, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong, is that let's say we want to run a bus over to Alamogordo. Alamogordo had bus service over here, and we actually cooperated with them and provided people from Chaparral to come here to get on the bus to Alamogordo, go to Alamogordo to go to court, or to go pay their fines or whatever they wanted to do. And Alamogordo decided they couldn't afford it, and they didn't want to pay the $30,000 a year out of the county budget in order to keep that service going. We still have the option to do that, but we would need Alamogordo to pay us in order to make that run over there profitable. And I think those are the fees we really need to look at those probably again and see where we are on those. Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds, for clarifying my question that was poorly worded.
No, it wasn't.
Appreciate it.
It wasn't even that. I just wanted to make sure that he understood the question so that he could answer it correctly, because I didn't think his answer addressed your question.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? Commissioner Shelter Hernandez?
Yes, Madam Chair. I just have a question. Maybe this is for Lucio. So there's fees assessed per entity that is a membership. So have we gotten our fees for the year yet? Have we paid that bill, or do we know what that number is? Okay.
The issue is that this is a budget presentation for next fiscal year. The issues is that we budgeted a certain level, but I'm not sure. I think last year there was a little bit of a disconnect because we're being asked to increase the membership fee that all the entities pay, but we're also being asked to increase the overall contribution that the county makes that the other entities don't make. So it really does raise the issue. We have to pay a fee, but yet we're the biggest stakeholder and contributor of all of these other entities. So where that balance is, and I didn't realize that it was 50 cents per resident, because then I may have to look at that number again. I thought because we should only be paying for those in the unincorporated areas.
That's correct.
And
If
Las
I may- if
Cruces
I-
makes a contribution based on their total, I'm assuming. But then Hatch, all of the municipalities then should be making a contribution. Somehow that 50,000, 53,000 suggests that someone may not be paying all of their.
Okay, if I may, we subtract, so we don't double digits. So we track out whatever Hatch pays, we subtract Las Cruces, everything out of it. The county pays what's left of the residency for the county. So we only do you're correct, it would be the unincorporated parts or your parts of the county that would fit in. We don't charge for those other fees.
Because I don't think the county has 100,000 residents.
Well, you're not paying 50 cents, you're paying more than that, another 25% on that. So it's about 65, 68 cents per resident. So we can certainly go back over those numbers. Like I said, this is based on our numbers. And all that information has been provided for the staff, so the staff should be reviewing that.
Well, I think we're going to need to look at those numbers as well. And Commissioner Murillo, you had a question. Did you have a question? Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair? If the vice chair is done, or if he's still.
I just have one other question, and that's on the executive summary that's in our packet. Was this prepared by county staff, the executive summary?
No, you're talking about the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, it's on a page in like 168.
167 is where it started, it's correct.
No, that comes from.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Thank you. Mr. Armijo, in your packet, you indicate that you'll be receiving $696,000 of funding for 5307 account.
That's correct.
In the financials you provided, you only indicate 138,000. So are we getting, is the SCRTD getting the $600,000, nearly 700, or are you only getting 130,000?
We haven't received any money from the federal government yet.
Well, and I guess I have.
That's account receivable.
Well, and I know, I guess my concern is this, is that I think the county approved an increased 825,000 last year for capital, that included investment in the capital funds. Now we're adding another 100,000 for capital funds. When I go through the expenditures in here, a majority, really the big difference across the whole thing is in salaries, not in capital expenses. So where am I missing this $100,000? Because when I look, or I apologize, I guess I was looking fiscal year 22, but we still have a huge jump in salaries. I guess where am I missing the capital projects line here?
Well, I'm not seeing what you're seeing. So what I
On
provided
your
was
financials.
Okay, in the financials, I provided three different cups where there's expenditures, there's revenues, and there's capital expenditures. Those are three separate things.
Okay.
It's not salaries, I can tell you that much.
Well, there is an increase of 100,000 to salaries. That's what I see.
Wow.
So, you know, like I said, it's just, I think as we haggle about the membership fee, you're asking for another $100,000 from the county, because if you take out the membership fee, because that is minuscule compared to the GRT that we provide to the SCRTD. I'm trying to understand, we had an increase last year to 825,000. Now we're having another $100,000. So I'm trying to figure out, I guess we contributed to the capital outlay or the capital purchases last year to help with that contribution. is that not a one-time fee, a one-time cost? And then now you're asking for more money on top of, I guess where we were in the $700,000 range, we went to $800,000 and now we're at $900,000. So I guess what I'm asking is, if we increased by $100,000 for capital, for a capital project last year, why, I guess, where's that money going this year?
$5.5 million of capital, federal funds. And so we're looking at a 10% match. So most of the match is coming from the state of New Mexico. They gave us $300,000 for the coming year. That's been programmed. We have $200,000 that's carryover. Part of that will be used before the end of the year, about $100,000. That leaves us with $400,000. So we asked for $100,000 from the county in addition. That would give us $500,000 local match to $5 million. That's what we're asking for. So I think you need to look at the page that shows capital. It starts with revenues on the top and then goes down to capital expense on the bottom. That's a different line item than the salaries. Salaries, as far as expenditures and the revenues for it, are pretty much the same as they were the year before. We didn't see a significant increase there. What we're seeing the increases on the capital side.
Madam Chair? Sorry, may I only ask one?
No, go ahead.
Can we get,
Go
can
ahead,
we,
Commissioner.
is there a way to get this slide presentation we're looking at up there on the, so he's looking at the same thing?
Well, no, all he has to do is move the pages.
Okay, that's what I thought. If we could just rotate the pages, that would be,
And Commissioners,
looking at
when
the
we're
same thing.
talking about a page, can we just refer to the page so that Mr.
Pa-
Arjona
Yeah,
knows
page
which we're
174 here is what
mentioning?
I guess we're looking at, and I'm trying to. Oh, it's in the, that's the difference, is this is the presentation versus the packet.
What page is it?
174 is what I'm looking at. Yeah, so.
Attachment 3, capital budget, Doñana County funds.
So I was looking at attachment 1, or at least where we were talking originally, that's where I was looking at attachment 1 for the budget for operations, but now I'm parsing through the capital budget.
Yes, okay, so let me take you down through the page. So if we look at capital appropriations, that's revenues, and we show there's 5311, that's what we get from the state of New Mexico. That's our annual allocations. Then local funds is the second section, and the first on the list is Doñana County, and you can see that in the budget request, there's the 100,000 shows. 300,000 from the legislature, another 110,000 of capital reserves that we have. That brings us to 510,000. So 5307 is there. If you go to the mid part of the page on total revenues, it will bring you to 5,388,800,000. If you go to the bottom of the page, you'll see it's 5,361 expenses. So there's a little bit of a surplus being built as we go through this. But again, we're programming the budget as we go. We don't yet have definitive numbers on the state yet. That won't come in until June. And then we do our normal annual budget and bring those up. These are the estimates that we have at this time. And so I think if you also go down the second part of the page, you'll see capital expenses, and you go to the second section, which is local. Again, you see the 100,000. So 100,000 comes in on the revenues above, and 100,000 goes out on that. That's why we're asking for that additional funds, and that's all we're asking on that section of it. You'd have to go to the other pages to look at the funds for the year for operating.
And I'd have to go back to the presentation, the budget presentation from last year, because from what I recall, that was one of the increases, the reason for increase to the SERTD was that we were going to be contributing for the capital, for the capital funds. And so now it's increasing another 100. Like I said, maybe I'm completely wrong. This is just my memory, and I've slept since then. But I recall, I thought that was one of the reasons why you had asked us for additional matches for these buses. And now we're asking for more, $100,000 on top of it. The budget packet in here that was provided, like I said, when we're talking 5307 funds, it's going to be 600,000, but we're only programming so much because it's just an estimate. Well, then I think if the packet is going to say 600 and some $1,000 that we're expecting of federal funds, then it should be reflected in the budget. It's not. So I guess I just have I have issues with the contributions. I have, I guess the other question is, Hero County is not part of the SERTD. And so are they going to be providing additional funds for the expansion into Sierra County?
Excuse me, the city of Williamsburg is part of the transit district, and they are a member that's paying. We have requested funds that come in from the county and others at Elephant Butte, and we're hoping to work through that during this budget year as well. They were members previously.
But understand, but as you're cutting services to District 5, you've cut service north of Hatch because of ridership.
Yeah.
And now we're going to expand all the way to Sierra County on Doña Ana County's dollar, when you weren't providing services all the way to Garfield like you were originally planned because of ridership. If we're paying for a service, then I would expect the county to get that service, and we're not. And I guess that's where my heartache is like I said, when I look at the budget, I look at what's presented, or at least on here, when we're looking at how much money we're going to get from federal funds, and I don't see that reflected in the budget. I guess I don't know. I guess I still have issues with how this budget is laid out. And then asking for another $100,000 from the county for a match, and then we're still arguing over $11,000 of a membership fee.
Are we arguing about that?
Well, I don't know. I guess we haven't approved it last year. And I think it's brought up that we need to be paying it. So I guess that's where I'm asking is, I guess my concern is that you're asking for another $100,000, but yet you're also saying we need to be putting in membership fee of $11,000. I mean, it's just, I guess where I guess my frustration is like I said, you're asking for additional funds, we're expanding service. When you cut service, when the county had been continuing to increase our contributions, and I guess this is where my frustration is coming out, because you're asking for more funds on top of what was last year, which was, like I said, when I would have to go look at the presentation, was also for capital funds. So if the money was going to be added to 800, that increase last year was for capital funds, then we shouldn't have to increase this year's budget, because those capital funds can go into this year. If you had from 700,000 added 100,000 for capital funds last year, theoretically it should be a flat budget, but we're increasing another 100,000. So I don't know. Like I said, I'll have to do my research and understand. I know we're not approving a budget this right now, but I need to get a better understanding of what was last year's budget into this year's budget. Well, and maybe we'll have those. Maybe I can have those questions answered, and I'll feel more comfortable with where we're
respectfully, last year's budget didn't include $5.5 million of federal funds. It didn't include that. It didn't include that process. It also didn't include the 696 that we've still not received from the federal government. The federal government moves very slowly. We have to work through things called the Transportation Improvement Plan, the TIP, and other programs, and then we have to go through months and months of that. I've been working on that since we received the money in August of last year. Those funds will become available shortly. They're also available through 2027. So we've got 6 or 7 years to spend those out. We're only spending the first group of funds. We received another $5.5 million of CMAQ money from the El Paso MPO. We haven't programmed any of that yet. We're going to see where that comes in when the time comes. That's also going through the Transportation Improvement Plan, and we've been told that that money will not be available till after October 1st of this coming year. So there are other funds coming through. The significance of the county partnership is that for every dollar the county gives us and we spend on capital, in the case of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, we get $9. So the $100,000 that's listed on this sheet will return $900,000 of investment and basically buys an electric bus and then some. That's what this is for. What we did or didn't do a year ago, really, I'm sorry, Commissioner, I don't know that it makes much difference going forward, but we can certainly look at those numbers. That'll help.
Thank you, Mr. Mijo. I think it absolutely makes sense. It is important because we're looking at what, the contributions from last year to this year. And if there was if we were increasing the budget last year for a one-time contribution, and then now we're acting as if it was, it's going to be an ongoing contribution. I think it is important to look at and understand exactly what the county provides to the SCRTD. I think it applies for any other department in the county as well. Like when we look at funds that we program specifically for a project, And if it was meant to be a one-time fee, then it should not be a recurring fee. So I think when I'm looking at it, that's where I stand from in my fiduciary responsibilities to the constituents of Doña Ana County. I want to make sure, look, don't get me, I mean, don't mistake me, because I think the SCRTD is important. I think we need to provide transportation to all of Doña Ana County. And I think we've talked about that, and we've provided, I think it was as we worked with, I mean, we provided 3 months of free fares. You all extended that as the SCRTD, and I know I wasn't on the board at the time, so I'm appreciative of the board for that. But I think, like I said, so I'm not trying to say that, get to a point where we were at 4 years ago saying, oh my God, SCRTD is not a profit-making entity, because that's not what we do here. That's not what you do. You provide transportation services. I just want to make sure that from the county's perspective, because our contribution to the SCRTD has more than doubled in the last 4 years. From 450,000, now you're asking for 930,000. I just want to make sure that we're using the money in the appropriate manner and making sure we're doing our homework before we approve the budget.
Yeah.
That's it.
May I please address your last comment? Because that's good. It's a critical comment. So the reason that number has gone up is the original commitment by this county board was $750,000 annually. That was the original agreement. It was laid out, and it was changed 2 years in. So we didn't get the $750,000 in the first 2 years. In fact, we operated with very limited resources during that time, and the matches that we were getting for county and other funding areas. It delayed our ability to get any buses or any other equipment because we didn't have a good, solid funding source. So what we've ended up doing is raising the funds as we go, and we've built as we go. We've used equipment, we've used every other way to try to get by with a limited budget. So I appreciate your comments and concerns. We also have the option that as a member of one of the 4 regional areas of the state, we looked at an election back in 2014. Perhaps we should be talking about a sales tax initiative as a serious funding source, because 2 of the districts up north in Santa Fe and Albuquerque and so on, that's what they have. And so perhaps that is where the dialogue should go.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Armijo.
You bet.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. Commissioners, any other comments? Commissioner Reynolds? Any other comments? Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Armijo. Appreciate your time. All right, we'll move forward to agenda item number 13, Animal Service Center of Mesilla Valley, FY '24 funding request from the county. Mr. Clint Thacker. Still good morning. Good morning.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Reynolds?
I do want to, I'm sorry, about the last item I just.
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez and
David Armijo.
he's right. The resolution he's talking about where the allocation for $750,000 is 2,000.
Is your mic on?
Yes, it is. I'm not talking in it. Sorry. The resolution he's talking about where the funding was actually appropriated in 2016 was 2016-26, the MOU understanding for $750,000 a year, and he's correct about that, and it was changed. I don't know how it was changed because, that was before me. But there is, what he's saying is correct is all I'm saying. And how it affects his budget today, I think we have to decide as a board whether that makes a difference or not. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. Sorry about that. Mr. Thacker?
Not a problem. Good morning. Quinn Thacker, Executive Director of the Animal Service Center, Mesilla Valley, here to talk to you about the fiscal year '24 proposal for a budget for the Animal Service Center, Mesilla Valley. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
okay. So the increase we're looking at today is going from 3.871 million to 4.534 million. This counts as a 17% increase for the Animal Service Center in Mesilla Valley. This screen, you'll notice we did have some challenges getting a budget together that the Board of Directors for the ASCMV could all agree on. It went back and forth for many presentations. Just of note, this slide may be a little bit different than what you have in your packet, but the total is still the same. So we went forth, I came to the board with the hopes of a 3% increase to the board and in efforts to decrease the ask that we had. So we said we'll do a 1.5% salary COLA increase or cost of living adjustment. So that was the 21 there. You see minimum wage increase. There is, would you say it's a, Mr. Macias, is it a goal of $15 or is it like an understanding of $15 an hour?
Mr. Chair, for the information of the commission, I mean, what has been discussed at the Animal Services Center, one of the issues that was raised was that there were a number of employees that were still at $14 an hour. We had suggested that one of the priorities for this next fiscal year was to increase to a minimum of $15,000. I think that the board, the executive committee working with Mr. Thacker came up with a proposal that would have increased our contributions from this year to next year at 17.1%. But again, what was suggested is that was only moving the employees minimum from 14 to 1450. And the discussion that I've had with Mr. Thacker to confirm to me that it would take basically another $24,000 in funding to move it up to $15 an hour. And that is something that we, again, would want to, this is just a budget presentation, but that's one of the refinements to this budget presentation that we may want to pursue.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Sanchez.
Just to add some color commentary on that, if I may, to what County Manager Macias was saying. So from the ASCMV board and what we had looked at originally, what Mr. Thacker had presented to the ASCMV board was, yes, to get to $15 at the behest of the board, because I think as we're seeing, not just from a competition standpoint in terms of labor, but labor wages, but also from a cost of living, the board had does support getting to $15. At the time when we were reviewing the budget, we were trying to get towards a 15% increase to kind of minimize where the overall budget increase was at. And so in kind of that exercise, we had asked Mr. Thacker to look at what it would be to do a step increase. So do it to $14.50 and then to $15 over the next 2 fiscal years. So that's kind of where that came from. And I think as County Manager Macias had pointed, I think in the end, we're talking $24,000 to get to $15 an hour. So it might not be, I think in the end, it's not the huge cost savings I believe we were looking at. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you. So in addition to that, we also have FICA and the retire health, et cetera. This is all based off of what individuals make. It's a percentage. So that's why when we look at the 1% increase that we did and also the 14 to 1450, that number is a little bit higher. And there's also a general increase every single year for those amounts as well. And then the health and dental, the $84,000 increase you see there, that is, the city is the one who charges or does our benefits through. And they recommended we increase by 4% to cover the upcoming charge or upkeep of that health and dental. And then also we have some positions that are not currently filled where we decided to fund those for a individual basis insurance, whereas now that they're not funded for insurance at all, just a way to keep so we have that cost in line. And then we have insurance for the center. That is an individual, that's the center's insurance as far as for the building and our vehicles, and that was negotiated to an $8,500 increase. We did cut some costs in our minor equipment, as you see, delay some costs in our computers, and also, autoclave for our medical department. We can go one more year for. Community cat is a big one. It's a hot ticket item this year. We originally did not have it in, and then we put it in, and then we asked to reduce it. We reduced it, and then we were asked to bring it back up. So we did do that, 105,000. That'll be the next slide. You'll see what is in that 105,000. And then the other, as you can see, we did cut some costs. We were able to shave off $125,000 or $128,000 there. So the community cat comes out to be $105,000. You'll see $10,000 that is for community outreach or education. That's one thing that we have never had, is the education portion, which I think is almost as important as the spay and neutering itself. So, and then 90,000 for spay and neutering. That also includes microchip and vaccines. And then a crisis fund is for an injured cat that comes in where we can safely treat it for the cat and also for ourselves. We have that money set aside for that. So our revenue adjustments, you see, we did lose $14,000 in funding because we no longer do pet licensing. However, we are going to increase our surrender fees, our owner surrender fees. It's the third highest impound method that we have. So we're going to pass a little bit on there, and makeup is projected to have $6,000. And then we're also taking $75,000 out of our fund balance and applying that to the ask as well. So in all, it's an increase for the county of $298,000. That brings our fiscal year 24 ask to the county of $2,048,184, and that goes for the city as well. That's a 17% increase. I can answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, does anyone have any questions? Commissioner Shelter Hernandez?
Just a comment, Clint. Thank you for putting this together. I know it has been a very long few weeks, but thank you for doing this. I'm excited about the community cat program. I think that is something that the community is asking for. So I'm excited to see that on there. But I just want to thank you and your staff for getting this done and presenting this to us today. So just thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shelter Hernandez. Any other questions, comments? I just noticed we're missing a commissioner. Anything else?
Nope.
All right, thank you so much.
I do, if I could, Madam Chair, I want to express my thankfulness for the board for recognizing the National Animal Care and Control Association week. I was on the National Animal Control board when we came up with this special week, so it's near and dear to my heart. We're also doing it at the center because it's National Animal Care, which we focus on the care week as well. So we have something going on each day for our staff. And so just thank you very much for that proclamation. I appreciate it.
Madam Chair? Oh.
Yes, Commissioner
I just
Sanchez.
really, or I'll defer to the county manager first before
I just wanted to, again, note that the request is for us to increase funding for next fiscal year. And if we were to add in enough money to make the $15 an hour, my calculation is $331,000 from the county and the city, because it's a total increase of 662,977. Is that correct? So if you added in another $24,000.
can I make the correction?
Yes.
So I believe we would split that
Oh, forgive me.
24,000 with the
Yes,
city, so
yes,
it
I'm
would
sorry.
be at
$12,000.
I like
10,000.
his a lot better.
I'm sure the city would too.
No, of course, you'd have to divide it in half.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I just want to say to Mr. Thacker, thank you for coming to present the ask for this. I think it's been, I think for us as a commission, I've enjoyed actually digging into into these, from the department level to these JPA organizations to MRVDA, I think was last week. I've enjoyed it. I know, I think even for the SCRTD, as painful as that may have been, sorry, and I apologize for my frustration. I think I just want to make sure as we're getting into this that we get as much information before we review. I know we're going to have the preliminary budget presentation, but I think having all this information for us has been very helpful. And so I think being able to have kind of a little bit deeper dive into these organizations, I really appreciate. So Mr. Thacker, thank you. And Mr. Amijo, if you're out there listening on the web still, thank you for coming to the commission today.
And
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez.
Madam Chair, if I could just correct that number, if we were to add in another $24,000 to be divided between the city and the county, it would bring up the ask to $686,977. And again, I believe that staying consistent with what the actions of the county commission have been to establish that minimum compensation at $15 an hour, I think really it is a very admirable goal, and we should be willing to contribute a little bit more. I do want to suggest to you that even with the summer enrichment program, which the Public Education Department wants the county to continue, we've already asked if we could pay the students $15 an hour, and they appear to be agreeable to that.
Madam Chair?
Thank you. Commissioner Reynolds.
Thank you. I know I've been quiet on this, but I have a question. As I remember, the 1.75 million that each the county and the city is paying, that was an increase last year, wasn't it, from 1.3?
1.45.
Yeah, so I'm curious as to why we need another $300,000 again this year added to that budget if we've already increased it by almost $300,000 last year. I mean, I agree with taking the payroll up by 40,000, but why are we being requested to do another 300,000 on top of that? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Okay.
I guess you go back to the other, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I think if you go back to like, I think the explanation, I think that helps.
Well, I saw it, I didn't see it.
Well, the community cap program's costing us $105,000 there. We have our FICA, para, all those that are unavailable, so that's $250. Health and dental are big ones. So that $300,000 was used to fund 6 more positions at the center. So there's costs related to that with FICA and health and dental. They all took that. And then we're also looking at our COLA, cost of living increases, and the minimum wage increase we'd like to do.
Turn my mic on. Thank you. I did see that the $105,000 for the community cat program. I'm sorry, you guys probably already know this, but I'm trying to understand why and what does that mean exactly?
Okay, that's a great question. Let me go back.
I thought it was $150,000 the last time I looked at it that you guys had asked for that program.
So I should have ran when we said we were done, right?
Yeah, you should have. That's right. Sorry.
That's all right. So $105,000, that was originally quite a bit more, but we took some things out of that program. Some of the things we took out was tried to do an estimation of the cats. That was at $30,000, and we knew that was not going to happen this year. There was also some money for animals to be taken to other veterinarians. And when I talked with our medical director, we looked at that. That was money that was not effectively used because the veterinarians charged just so much money for sterilizations. So we were more apt to cut that out and lower the ask, but keep the spay-neuter surgeries you see there at $90,000, keep that where it is. And the program as well, the $10,000 for the program. There was also a position that was in there, the community cat program manager position, and that was funded. That was one of the ones that you funded in last year with the $300,000, so we could take that portion out. So in all, it came to the $105,000 for that. Are you familiar with what a community cat program is? Do you want me to go over that?
I think it's actually what you're showing here, which is the outreach, the spay and neuter, and the crisis fund. And I know that we've had a plan to try and do spay and neuter of cats like forever. And I know we struggle with getting veterinarians to do it. I know it costs a lot. Okay. I guess the question is, how does this change? I know the $90,000 for spay and neuter. How does this change what we're already doing? Because are we adding another veterinarian, or is it costing us more? I mean, is that why we're increasing the cost of the program that we've already been doing for 4, 5, 6 years, 7 years?
Yeah, it's a good question as well. So the community outreach is one thing that we have never done in accordance with a community cap program. It's always been like a one-on-one basis education when people bring animals in. So the community CAT's the biggest portion, the community outreach is the biggest portion. We're going to be able to do education. We have a person that we've hired, or we're going to hire, a community CAT program manager, who's going to be able to manage the program, get the information out of what we do, how we do it. So we will be seeing an increase of CATs coming in for that. And then the 90,000, like I said, it's not just for surgeries, but vaccines and microchips that we're able to get the animals sterilized.
So the only difference here is education, sounds like, than what we're already doing.
Education and money for the surgeries. Yes.
Well, I think we have too many cats, but that's just me, sorry.
We do. You're right.
And I think we have too many dogs that are unleashed as well, but that's another discussion. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. Any other comments, commissioners? All right, then the commission adjourns as the Board of County Commissioners and the County Board of Finance in open session. We're adjourned at 11:52 a.m. Congratulations.
Manny.
Yeah, hold on. Okay.
You're on the